The Wii U and 3DS era wasn't exactly a great time for Nintendo and their fans, right? But I don't think it was all doom and gloom like most people make it out to be. But it wasn't great either. The 3DS was doing pretty well, I would say, and while I do vastly prefer its predecessor, I can't deny that the 3DS was successful. The Wii U on the other hand, not so much. To keep things short, the Wii U was marketed poorly, it didn't sell very well, and not to mention a lot of titles were pretty much just console versions of whatever was on the 3DS. The games were still sometimes good, but that wasn't really anything unique going for the Wii U per se, aside from a Nintendo Land and a Zombie U here and there. But a new IP was revealed around 2014. Yep, Nintendo finally dove into the shooter genre. Obviously, it was much more family friendly than your typical shooter, but it was still pretty crazy back in the day. Splatoon took a more unique approach than most shooters. Instead of being first person, you were in third person, and rather than some gritty environment, you were in some colorful world and shooting ink instead. Splatoon had a concept of basically shooting ink out of your weapon, which could not only be used to kill, splat your enemies, but you could also use it to cover the map. The objective of the game being to beat a team to cover the most of the map. Movement was also different compared to most shooters. You had limited ammo, and to refill it, you have to swim in your team's ink, but you can also use this as a means to move around the map faster. Though you can't swim in your enemy's ink, that would just slow you down or kill you. It's a very simple gameplay loop, but you'll be surprised at how well this works. There's also these things you can throw if you press R. These vary between weapons, they can really consume your ink, but they can really pack a punch. And not to mention, this game was also one of the few games to actually utilize the Wii U gamepad. This is the best use of this in the form of gyro, and when I mean gyro, I mean moving around the gamepad little movements, not the whole way. This was basically a great way for the two to stand out at the time, and it led to other shooters like Fortnite including gyro later on. Though if you understandably don't like motion, you can disable in the settings. Another thing that made this game stand out at the time was the fact of how heavily it was marketed. There's a bunch of ads that are pretty cool, and the E3 event as mentioned before, but you also had ads like, "You're a kid now, you're a squid now, you're a kid, you're a squid, you're a kid, you're a squid, you're a kid now." Yeah. Another cool thing Nintendo did with this game was also host a global test fire. This was basically an event that had where people could download this for free, and at certain times people would be able to play a bunch of online matches for a certain period of time. It was a great way to get a feel for our product, and I'm glad they kept the tradition for later games as well. But for me personally, I didn't even own a Wii U until 2018 or so, and I never got into Splatoon until the third game actually. It wasn't until recently where I decided to try the first game because how else am I going to get used to my Wii U? But enough of my rambling for now, let's finally talk about the damn game, huh? Upon finishing the tutorial, or just booting the game, you're always greeted by Inkopolis Plaza. This is basically the main menu for Splatoon. You can do two things here, explore or just walk to the area you want to go to. But let's be real, you're going to use the gamepad instantly to go there, so that just leaves us with exploring the plaza. Now, there's not really much going on here, and one might say that something is missing, and you'd be right. See, the Wii U had a service called Miiverse, which allowed certain games to let you see messages from other players. Splatoon used this heavily in the plaza, and you can see it in action right now. Sadly, Miiverse shut down way back in 2016, but you won't see any messages anymore. But that doesn't mean you can't explore the plaza though, but not much going on. But at least it's neat to see all the players you met throughout your matches, and you can even go to this totally not shady spot over here. But enough about the hub, what is there to actually play? Guess we're covering the story mode first then. When you boot the game first, there's breaking news. The great Zapfish, the main power source of the plaza, has been stolen. And coincidentally, there was a strange UFO spotted as well. That son of a bitch. So after going to not a shady spot number 2, falling down a goddamn sewer, we're greeted by an old guy. He says that the Octarians are coming, before basically telling us that he knows they're up to something and it's up to us to save the great Zapfish and Inkopolis as well. Congratulations, you're an agent now. From here on out, it's basically a linear path. You have 5 worlds to clear, and all you gotta do is explore the world a bit, ink these kettles, and then enter them to play a level. Beat it, and you get a Zapfish. To advance to the next world, you basically have to collect the amount of Zapfish indicated at the top over here. These levels are basically New Super Mario Bros. Levels, but for Splatoon. They either just test different areas of movement, have some sort of gimmick to keep you on your toes, etc, etc. This is a pretty decent way to get a feel for how the game works, and it's a good thing that these levels don't overstay their welcome. These levels can be a handful of things. Simply getting to the Zapfish, avoiding drone strikes by staying in ink as long as you can, some new level specific gimmick, like these sponges that'll expand upon inking them, and finally, the opposite to your player character, the Octarians. Anywho, throughout the story, you'll gain these power eggs. These can be used to upgrade your hero gear, like getting more bombs, making them better, or even just upgrading your gun and how much ink you can hold. You don't have to do this though, as the provided gear should be enough to even play the mode of upgrading, but it's recommended you do so, especially for the... At the end of each world, you'll fight a boss once you reach the Zapfish requirement. Out of all 5 of these bosses, I consider 4 of them to be too easy. They're not bad, but it's rather simple to get a hit on them, and then they all just go down within 3 heats anyways. So when you do get a feel for them, the fight is already over. That's not to say that the bosses aren't unique though. I like this one where you literally have to throw bombs into its mouth after breaking its teeth. As you do progress throughout the story mode, the old man, the captain, gets kidnapped by a mysterious figure. After a world of pure silence, you get accompanied by agents 1 and 2, who look oddly familiar. Who the hell are you? After beating 4 worlds, it's finally time to take on the final world, and this is where I start getting tired of the story mode. It's not that the levels get worse, it just gets repetitive. With Splatoon 3 for example, each level in that story mode lets you choose from a set of weapons most of the time, so you always have a different way of approaching a level, making each level feel fresh. In Splatoon 1, you are always stuck with the hero shot in story mode, and the only thing you can change is your bomb. So by the final world, it gets kinda repetitive, don't you think? Thankfully, there's only 6 more levels left to take care of, so just do that and then it's on to the final boss, DJ Octavio. This is the final boss fight of the story mode, and the best one. This fight is basically a long chase where you'll just try to avoid whatever he fires at you until he fires his bomb, dub stomps you, hit you 3 times, and then repeat. Though, the more you progress, the more shit he'll throw at you. Then near the end, this is the part where the boss starts running. After one final push, you finally beat him, the great Zapfish is returned, boom, credits. For being story mode though, you get the hero and Arcling gear to wear for online battles, and the Zapfish is now part of the title screen. It's worth mentioning that if you 100% story mode, you get the hero shot replica, which is basically the copy of the hero shot, but now you can use it online. Sweet. Overall, story mode is a nice thing to have. It's only about 5 hours long and it's nothing mind blowing, but it's nice if you just want to get the general feel of the game, controls and all that. Well, with the great Zapfish restored, I guess it's time to look at the online multiplayer, huh? Finally, the main mode of the game, the online multiplayer. But before diving into the various modes and what they offer, remember how I said this game was one of the few games to actually use the gamepad? Yeah, that mainly comes into play in this mode. So while the gamepad was really only used for the map and the story mode, in multiplayer they really use the gamepad. Not only is it your map, but it can be used for various other things, like jumping to your teammates. This is something that you can do pretty much anytime, granted you and them are alive. While this is a great method to get to the action faster, you better make sure you don't have to jump into someone being camped, because that's always fun. Another thing you can do with the gamepad is the specials. You get to use them after inking enough turf, but you also lose part of it when you get splatted. The specials depend on what weapon you use. There's a lot of them, ranging from something simple like throwing a bunch of bombs to an airstrike you can place anywhere using the gamepad. Yeah, these specials are stupidly overpowered. They're fun to use, and some of them like the aforementioned bomb rush are actually fair and fun to use, but then you've got stuff like the airstrike, a shield that not only makes you invisible for a few seconds, but it makes anyone around you visible as well. And then there's the Kraken, which makes you a Kraken that's not only invincible, but also one-taps anything nears it, and it covers ink. But that doesn't compare to the Killer Whale, this huge beam that quite literally decimates anything within its range. I can still hear the noise in my dreams, as a matter of fact. But the point is that all these specials are still really fun to use, and while I understand why they were toned down in the later games, for the most part, it makes the game stand out more, along with the gamepad. As I said before, the gamepad is used to the fullest in this mode, and while I still prefer our tree controls because I'm not a fan of the huge chunky gamepad, even I can't deny that they made the game really work with the gamepad. I found myself getting more comfortable the more I played. But what about the weapons? Well, you can basically buy these from the store. The more you level up, the more weapons you can unlock. There's a ton of weapons to use, each having their own pros and cons, and it's all a matter of personal preference, really. I'm not going to tell you which weapon to get or go over all of them because I'd be for hours, but the main point is that there's a ton of playstyles you can choose here, and that's something I really appreciate. Though you'll probably be forced to play with a few weapons when you start the game, seeing as some weapons require you to reach a certain level. Personally, I use the Splash Shot Junior, and then once I reach a high enough level, it's N-Zap all the way, baby. But what about the modes? So, the mode that most people probably play and recognize from this game, Turf War. This mode was basically all over the marketing of this game, and it's a pretty simple concept really. The goal is to basically ink as much turf as possible, the team who inks the most turf wins. When you win, it feels really good. When you lose... While the main goal is to ink turf, you don't want to just ink turf, you also want to splat the enemies, but you don't want to just rush in and splat the enemies, so maybe doing both is the best plan. Obviously, specials can help you in this mode a lot too. God, I fear the Kraken. Another thing to mention is the maps. Splatoon has a selection of 2 maps, and they rotate every 4 hours. While this can be game annoying, and later games change to 2 hours for a reason, and it does result getting in a single map far too many times, I like the maps enough not to care too much about it. Some of my favorites being Arona Mall, Mahi Mahi Resort, South Play Rig, etc. And while some maps didn't make it to Splatoon 3, some maps are still exclusive to 1, or they got absolutely neutered in 3 like Mahi Mahi. There's still plenty of fun to be had with Turf War, but what if you wanted something a little more exciting? So, when you reach level 10, you can play ranked mode. This is if you want to do something else that isn't Turf Wars, and you want an ego boost in the form of a grade. That also means losing hits a lot harder than the regular battles. There's also a squad battle, but... Ranked has a total of 3 modes, so how about we start with Splat Zones. Splat zones is a fairly simple concept as well. Depending on the map, there will be 1 or 2 points in the center of the map, and the goal is to ink the points and hold them for as long as possible, or until time runs out. When inking the points, however, you have to ink them a certain amount before you can claim them. Otherwise, they stay up for free grabs. Another cool thing this mode does is that if either team loses their zones, their turn count gets added a penalty, which still gives the losing team a chance, which is nice. The only problem I really have with this mode is how you can just use certain specials to just claim the point. Like having trouble getting the point, just ink strike it. So thankfully it's not totally busted, as your team still has to coordinate to actually hold the point, but it does get mildly annoying at its worst. Splat zones is still a very fun mode though, but if you ask me which ranked mode was the best, that's where tower control comes in. Tower control is a really simple concept. There's a tower in the center of the map, and each team has to ride the tower to the enemy team's side. The tower starts moving whenever one member of the team is on it. They'll stop if members of both teams are on it. If nobody's on it, then the tower will start going back to the center. Whichever team gets the furthest or gets to the end first, wins. This mode is my favorite simply because of how chaotic it gets. Sure, it's nerve-wracking as hell when you're the only one on the tower defending for dear life, but it's also exciting when you manage to pull it off. Like Splat zones, some specials can be used to cheese the mode and claim the tower for yourself, but they always don't guarantee a win. You still have to coordinate with your team in order to keep the tower. I'd also agree that with the specials, they just add to the chaos and tower control, and it makes it a lot fun in my opinion. But with that out of the way, there's only one more mode left to cover, Rainmaker. This mode is basically capture the flag if the flag was a bazooka. Rainmaker has you get this weapon, the Rainmaker, and carry it on to the other side of the map. So to prevent both teams from getting the Rainmaker easily, you have to shoot at this barrier that surrounds it every time someone loses it. If broken, it'll produce a huge explosion, killing any enemies near it. After that, it's free for grabs. The Rainmaker slows you down and you can't super jump with it, meaning you have to carry the thing to yourself all the way to the end of the map. Not to worry though, the Rainmaker can defend. It's basically a bazooka, and you have to basically charge it to really dish some damage. That's where your teammates come in. In this mode, it's their job to ink the Rainmaker carrier a pad and kill the others as well. If you die with the Rainmaker, it drops you where you died and it'll respawn again, with the shield having to be broken again. It's also worth noting that environmental kills will reset the Rainmaker back to the center. Whichever team gets the furthest to the end or first wins. While this mode is still fun, it's my least favorite out of the three. It's no clan blitz, but I don't know, I'll always prefer splat zones and tower control. But that's it for ranked mode really. What else is there to do in this game though? So back when the game was still fresh, Nintendo would often host these Splatfests. A Splatfest is basically a time when everyone starts partying like there's no tomorrow. But what does this mean for gameplay? Well, before a Splatfest starts, you're prompted to choose a team, depending on the topic. Once chosen, you basically wait for the day to arrive, and then it's time to do Splatfest battles. These are basically turf wars with a team change, but doing these helps contribute to your team, so I encourage you to do these as much as you can. A cool thing about Splatfest is that you can only play these with people on your team, so if your friend is on the other side, guess your enemies for the time being. It's a shame you can't really experience these anymore. I really would have loved to try these in the first game. Turns out, you can! Thanks to the efforts of the very hard workers at Pretendo Network, I was able to try a Splatfest in 2022. It was very buggy to get in a match, so much so I was only able to play one match, the weirdest part being that it was a tower control match, despite the game only counted turfed ink, which really threw me off, but hey, it worked! It still has a very long way to go, but it's a neat proof of concept. Anyways, what happens after being Splatfest? Well, you get these super sea snails, which you can use by going to this not shady area at all. Here, you can use the snails to reroll stats in your gear, which leads me to my next point, gears. Once you reach level 4, you're pretty much free to browse all the other shops besides weapons. But these include clothes, shoes, and hats. These are optional things for those who just want to spice up their inkling, but these also come with their own perks basically. Each gear basically has randomized abilities along with their own substat. These builds are completely random, and the only way to reroll these is getting a new one if it's available, or rerolling as mentioned before. This won't be a problem if Splatfests for sure a thing, but they really aren't. Alternatively, you could just do what I do and not really give a shit about the stats, only getting gear to look cooler. Another cool feature this game has is that you can order gear. This is done by just looking at someone's inkling in the lobby and then ordering if it's available to purchase. The downside to this is you'll have to wait a day for the gear to come, and it might not even have the same stats. But as far as I'm concerned personally, I got the hat I want, baby! Splatoon has a great style. The character designs are all great, striking a cartoony look without overdoing it, and it just pops out to you with how colorful it is. That's not even mentioning how much detail is packed into this game. I played this game just for fun, but there's a reason why there's so many theories out there dedicated to this haha funny squid game. The game encourages this with these little scrolls in the story mode as well. All these little details however combine for a really good looking title for the Wii U, which keeps a consistent 60 frames per second with little lag. If I had to complain in one area though, it would be with how stiff the animations look, along with how dull the game can look overall. Because I played 3 first, and then came back to 1, it's hard to not notice how much the graphics and animations really have improved since the first game. Sure is a difference, huh? But that being said, Splatoon 1 is still a very good looking game, and it's far from the worst the Wii U has to offer graphically. So when it normally comes to shooters, the most you'll be hearing in game is
Paw gets the tweezers out, Coulter said no!
Splatoon, on the other hand, Splatoon just full on embraces music that is fast, frantic, and I love it. I mean, for God's sakes, the two people who literally make the announcements are musical idols. It's worth noting that a lot of songs have these vocals, which is an interesting choice to say the least. And yeah, it's not gonna win over everybody, I get it, but I eventually got used to it, and now I listen to it a lot. And that's not even mentioning the different bands. I really should stop looking into Splatoon lore. Another cool thing to mention is that while the battle music tends to be fast and frantic, the story mode music goes for a much different, calmer tone. A detail I also adore is in Turf War, where in the last minute, the current music stops and is instead replaced with this tune. It sure is a great track for when the other team is about to turn the tables and steamroll you, but yeah, the music is probably one of the more defining aspects of the game, and even the whole franchise. There's a lot more to be said about the music itself, but then we'd be here for days. And that's Splatoon. For Nintendo's first dive into the shooter genre, I'd say they did a pretty good job. It's worth a shot if you're interested, even if the concept of gyro aiming is a bit odd to you. It's great that this title did well enough that it spawned 2 sequels on the Switch alone, but why play the first game now? To put it in simple terms, each Splatoon game is like a different flavor of ice cream, and everyone has their own personal favorite. While I'm personally sticking with 3 as that's my favorite, I can't deny that I see myself coming to 1 sometimes. Splatoon 1 came out at a time when Nintendo was arguably at their worst, with titles like Mario Tennis Ultra Smash, Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival, Mario Party 10, and so much more. Splatoon was basically that light for the dark times Wii U owners were going through back then. Some might say that Splatoon 1 was even the Wii U's killer app. There's a reason why so many people like the first game regardless of nostalgia, and after checking it out myself, I can see why. I had a blast visiting the game, and even got to do a private match on another server. I cannot tell you how nice it is to be in a private lobby with a bunch of Wii U owners in 2022. It really is amazing. Many people might say there's not a reason to check out 1 and more due to 2 and 3 existing, but it's very much worth your time if it's possible. It still has a very dedicated community, and I was still able to find matches pretty quickly. Well, most of the time, but there's always Squid Jump to pass the time. Thanks Wii U gamepad, though even most of the player base is Japanese, which makes sense as that's where Splatoon is the most popular.
So, what's the occasion?
Japan. But overall, this game is still a very good game, and I'm glad I decided to check it out even if I'm 7 years late. If you have a Wii U lying around, then I would say go check it out if you're interested. If you check Splatoon out because of this video, welcome to the club, baby!